is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 21st of August, 2019, and I am 2J.
I am 2M.
And I am Miss K, your host. Again, in case you missed it, this is Winning Headlines. Let's take a look at today's headlines. The Standard, Kenya tops world's law of the jungle lists. Don't know if I should be smiling through that.
You should.
Daily Nation, cancer vaccine rollout on course despite protests. And The Star, the company's given 900-acre railways land.
Yes.
Let's start with this.
Yeah.
Corruption as always, or inferred corruption?
Let me put it this way. It's very normal once you're building a dry port. If goods are going to dock in Mombasa and then they're going to be taken from a ship to be put on a train and are not going to be cleared by the clearing and forwarding services, they will land in Nairobi.
Yeah.
Now, it is also normal for you to put CFSs, clearing and forwarding services, in the dry port in Nairobi. Now, what has happened is those guys that existed in the port of Mombasa
Are being moved.
that are just duplicating their services in Nairobi.
Because of the SGR.
Because of the SGR.
Yeah.
Where it is a big story, I don't know. But then again, because
I think it's over here, controversy. 27 farms, including one linked to Joho family, got
see,
plots.
Yeah, you see, it's in the nature of ESCC to investigate. At this rate, they'll probably investigate why we didn't get enough long range in Kenya.
I think we're tossing this story.
We do. We are, and I think we have to say our criteria. We have a three-part criteria that we used to break down the headlines for you. We ask ourselves three questions.
That was a good joke.
Is this headline topical or is it speculative?
Yeah.
Is it repetitive or is it groundbreaking? And finally, is it thoughtful or just plain lazy?
Plain lazy
And speculative, long
bored.
range.
All right.
Daily Nation,
Yes.
cancer vaccine rollout on course despite protests.
Yeah, so the government wants to roll out the HPV vaccine that they want to give to girls as young as 10 years old.
Yes.
But the Catholic Church has come out in protest saying that it is not necessary.
What is the
For
vaccine for?
girls, for young girls.
Yes, for cervical cancer.
Yes.
Yeah, so they want to give it out in two parts.
Yeah.
So what I understand is the position of the Catholic Church across the world is that they say that you do not need to take this vaccine if you are not sexually active.
Yes.
And that's why they're saying that girls as young as 10 years old do not need to have it.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, I understand it. But at the same time, the Catholic Church are very confused and they're very outdated in terms of things about reproductive health.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
Isn't birth control a mortal sin?
Let me
I
tell
think
you,
that has changed.
Me, I would actually believe them. You see, some time back, I think during, just before the election, they discovered a batch of polio vaccine that had some materials, properties that could make women sterile. And I think the Ministry of Health withdrew that batch of vaccine. So if they're telling us something is happening now, I would not really, I would be very interested in what they know.
Here's the thing, their protests are not on the problem with the vaccine itself. They have no problem with the vaccine itself. That time they had a problem with the vaccine. And there's a lot of talk about the correlation between the dark world and vaccines and the use of vaccines to limit populations, to do very negative things, and also the creation of some diseases that have prolific natures in laboratories.
Yeah.
But here they have a problem with the age at which it is rolled out. So they say, and a lot of things have been said that you only get HPV if you're sexually active. Therefore, if you're 14, you don't. I feel like we're going back into that conversation for consent versus the right age to have.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, with 40,000 new cases annually, I think this is something that we can't ignore as a country. Did we not talk about the high cancer rates that we just simply do not understand?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this is an important story.
Absolutely.
But I think it's boring.
Toss it.
Yeah.
Kenya tops world law of the jungle list.
What did we expect?
What did we expect?
Yes.
Because you're so negative.
Yes.
Here we are about positivity
You
and
see-
love of country.
You see, when you raid people at night with dirty Subarus and then you go touch all their properties, you know, you're behaving like a gang. It's time we have some semblance.
Okay, let
of
Ms. K
rule
give
of
some
law.
context about this story before you start rambling.
Okay, so the World Justice Project usually does an annual ranking for the rule of law in the countries of the world. And this year, Kenya was number 101 out of 126. Uganda was 113. And we note that Rwanda was number 40.
Which I find so curious, because if you were to ask me just on face value, the difference between Uganda and Rwanda, to me they are the exact same country. The way that their leaders, what is the difference between Museveni and Kagame?
When you're authoritarian, you're authoritarian. It doesn't matter how you've rebranded.
If you ask ask Rwandans about Kagame, they say that one we love. And guys, there's a beauty about Rwanda. Systems run. When you come here, yes, sometimes systems run, and sometimes we run amok because of democracy.
All right, so
let me. Democracy here.
So this World Justice Forum, they have these rule of law principles that they use to decide what rankings countries are going to get. So let me read those 4 principles that they go by.
I can't wait for you to get there.
Number 1, government and its officials are accountable under the law. And I think as we read this, let's think about Kenya. Are we
accountable under the law?
Government and its officials are accountable under the law. 2.
Yes, I agree.
Laws are clear, publicized, stable, fair, and protect fundamental rights, including the security of persons and property.
I'm telling you, Tuam can say all the things he says here. Go home to his mansion in the suburbs of Nairobi.
Number
come
3,
back to work.
Number 3, the process by which the laws are enacted, administered, and enforced is accessible, fair, and efficient. And number 4, access to justice is provided by competent.
Stop.
Access to justice is provided by competent,
what?
Independent, ethical adjudicators, attorneys or representatives, and judicial officers who are sufficient and reflect the makeup of communities they serve. You had an issue with the word competent.
Yeah.
Why?
Stop.
The Brotherhood of Law, as you call them. I think that what's most interesting for me in this headline is how this, the Standard has managed to take something negative and turn into something positive.
Yes.
If you on face value read this, Kenya tops world's law of the jungle list, you'd be like, hey, what did Kenya top today?
You'll be celebrating.
Then upon further investigation, you find that we're number 101 out of 126 countries.
Yes.
So therefore, toss this sarcastic headline.
But I give them props.
And we have no winning headline. On to our next segment, the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Just like the headlines, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to break them down for you. We ask ourselves, is a cartoon humorous or is it dry? Is it satirical or is it pessimistic? And finally, is it effective or just plain lazy? I feel like that's just plain lazy.
No, but I mean, I like this.
Describe it.
A caricature of a new coach for Harambee Stars, and his name is Francis Kimanzi. And the caption there is, Kimanzi retakes the coaching position. And the ball is a couch, and it's coaching. It's coaching.
Also needs to go read a book.
Thank you so much.
Need to go read a book.
And this table, we don't understand football.
No, we don't.
It's just, because it's just a ball. Or it is cartoon, you guys.
All right, you can look at it from your pack.
Let's look at First the Nation. Okay. Here it is. Oh, Ndula. And caricature of the Brotherhood. That is
Haji,
Barak and Haji.
Yeah.
And
they're trying to revive the NYS scam,
which is in a coffin. And it's dead. And Matiang'i, it looks like Matiang'i.
I actually was trying to figure out who that was. I don't know.
Okay,
so says to I don't know who it is. Either way, they're trying to, and I find it very interesting that the part where they're trying to pump is the top of the coffin. Where's the body? Please tell me, where's the body? Toss it.
And the blood they're collecting is black.
Trash it.
Finally. I think Gado is a little bit awake.
In this one, I love.
My prayers worked. I'm telling you, yesterday I declared that I would pray for him to get back his inspiration, and I think we're back in Kenya. We have a 2-headed monster.
Yes, I actually thought it was a salamander first, but now it's a monster. And the monster has 2 heads.
Yeah.
On head number 1 is Raila Odinga's. Head number 2 is Kalasinga himself. Deputy President William Ruto.
I know, and his face.
And in the middle, and he's claimed this dragon, this monster, is a prince, UHURU Kenyatta. And you notice he has a suit on, but no shoes,
yes.
And he has a crown.
And his eyes, he looks crazed.
Whoa.
And down there, around this monster, you have a BBI that's in pieces, a Big Four that's unopened, and
a bottle of whiskey that has
blood.
And the blood and the bones.
And Gado's typical little guy who hangs around in the corner says,
the man of truth.
And to think that he created it.
Yes. But absolutely, and Gado is absolutely right. When UHURU Kenyatta was building bridges, what he was actually doing is creating a monster.
Yeah.
And by creating a monster, he was burning bridges.
Yeah, and you can't build bridges by burning them.
Yes, in fact, we would want to call it here BBI is the Burning Bridges Initiative.
Oof, don't say we. Speak for yourself. Yeah, but I think what we see here is Uhuru Kenyatta being taken for a ride.
Yes.
He's created a monster he can't control.
Yes.
And I think what's quite interesting is that these two monsters are actually linked.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. They are linked and they're moving
in opposite
direction.
Independently.
Yeah, and he seems perplexed to saying, what did I do?
What's happened?
Yes.
I think this is a fantastic cartoon.
I think I like it. I think it's a winning cartoon. What do you say?
Agree.
Today we have a winning cartoon from the day of the Standard. And finally, what's our final thought?
Absolutely. And now our final thought. Inspired by the Kapenguria 6. And I would want to educate the nation about the gentleman who came up with the concept Kapenguria 6. It was Professor Mutahi Ngunyi and Professor Katumanga Musambai, right? Who one day in 1994 took a trip to Kandara and they stopped next to a pusher mill. And they stopped at a pusher mill and they entered. And they interviewed one of the Kapenguria 6, a man called Bildad Kagia. And Bildad Kagia took them blow by blow for 6 hours outside the establishment. And he dissected all the Kapenguria 6 personalities. Yeah. And that's exactly what you're going to do here, June.
Yeah, so I think today we're going to continue weaving our history together,
yes.
you know, in terms of our founding fathers.
Absolutely.
So what we had spoken about yesterday, we're going to continue. Yeah. On October 9th, 1952, Senior Chief Wairohio of Nyeri was shot and killed by Mau Mau gunmen.
Absolutely.
He had been tried by Mau Mau leaders in absentia and was found guilty of collaborating with the colonialists.
Yes.
12 days later, on the 21st of October 1952, the colonial government declared a state of emergency. Yeah. And the then governor of Nairobi, Evelyn Baring,
Sir Evelyn Baring,
issued orders for the arrest of, so mass arrests were issued, and of those arrests, 6 men who would later come to be known as a Kapenguria 6 were arrested.
Absolutely.
So these men, Bildad Kagia, Kungu, hey please, I can't say these names. Let me not even attempt.
Okay, I'll help you.
Let's go. Bildad Kagia,
Kungu Karumba, Jomo Kenyatta, Fred Kubai, Paul Ngei, and Achieng Oneko.
Exactly. So these men were arrested and then they were now called the Kapenguria 6.
I have to note something, that they were arrested on the 20th of October, 1952. And the 20th of October is a holiday that many of us Kenyans have been celebrating without legs. We have no idea where it comes from. And the reason why we celebrate is because that's the day they were arrested. And from independence was known as Kenyatta Day. And after the passage of the 2010 Constitution, the day changed to Mashujaa Day. So now you know why it's a holiday.
So many people don't know this, but Kapenguria is in West Pokot County. And the reason that they were sent there is because it was believed that the Mau Mau would attempt to come and get them out. So they took them to this faraway location that was very remote so nobody could get them out. But additionally, you needed an identification card in order to get into that zone, which a lot of the native Kenyans did not have. So these 6 men were then tried at Kapenguria from 1952 to 53 and were imprisoned thereafter for 7 months with hard labor.
And I have to say that if there was a kangaroo court, now that we're coming from the kangaroo courts in our previous law of the jungle list, that was the kangaroo court. Because that case, and I read the appeal on it, you can find it on Kenya Law, they actually had a series where they had put in the appeal on that case. They said that when they were trying to find out, so the appeal, why were we tried in Kapenguria? We didn't do anything in Kapenguria. So they said that Bildad Kagia, Fred Kubai, Achieng Oneko and Jomo Kenyatta had a secret meeting in Olkalau, and that secret meeting was a Mau Mau meeting. Therefore, based on that, because Olkalau is in Rift Valley, you now have the jurisdiction, bearing in mind that they're breaking the law now here, you now have the jurisdiction to try them in Rift Valley, so you can do Kapenguria because it's in the same jurisdiction as their secret meeting.
The people who testified at the court claimed that they were told to take off their clothes and drink blood, and they said Jomo Kenyatta instructed them to do so, and that was the only witness who testified at the case, and that was the foundation by which they were tried.
His name was Rosson. I forget his second name. I just remember that first name because I found it very strange. And later he actually said that he perjured himself. And by perjure, what we mean in legal terms is that he lied in front of the court. But guess what? they still were detained.
Exactly.
Let me ask you guys, they actually had the oath being given from 1.4 kilometers away.
Oh yes, there was another witness who said that there was a ceremony, a Mau Mau initiation ceremony that took place in Jomo Kenyatta's house. So he was living about 1.4 kilometers away from Jomo Kenyatta, and there was a hill in between. And he said that it was at night, and because it was at night, he was able to hear clearly the initiation songs that were being sung, and he knew that an initiation ceremony was happening. I told you guys, kangaroo courts of all kangaroo courts.
What we're saying, this was a sham of a case.
Absolutely.
So we're not going to focus on Jomo Kenyatta's story today because we will do that tomorrow. But I think one very interesting fact that we want to bring to your attention is that 68 years ago today, on the 21st of August 1961, Jomo Kenyatta was released from detention. So what actually happened is on the 14th of August 1961, he was officially released, but then a few days later he was released from house arrest. So 68 years ago he was released. We'll cover that tomorrow. But I think we'll just go through these heroes one by one, and I think we'll start with Kungu Karumba because he's the only one of the 6 who did not go into politics.
Absolutely.
He ended up being a businessman. So the story is told about how Jomo Kenyatta, after independence, told him, my guy, I don't think you're smart enough to get into politics. So just do us all a favor and just go into business. And so he decided to do that. So he goes into business, he becomes very wealthy, very well known, and he starts doing business in Uganda. So one day he goes to Uganda in 1974 to collect a debt. And he goes to this woman, and she apparently is the wife or the mistress, we do not know the fact, of a very well-known chief. And so this woman starts harassing Karumba and tells him, if you come back here one more time, I'm going to call this man and he will get you. So Karumba started calling himself Jomo Kenyatta's brother and a very well-known confidant of Idi Amin. And so eventually, we do not know what happens, he disappears.
And I think that is the most enduring story about him, unfortunately, because if you try and Google Kungu Karumba,
that's the only story you get.
His disappearance. And you forget his history and the fact that he was part of the Kapenguria Six.
Absolutely.
I'll add in something about Fred Kubai. And I'd like to bring in a bit of history. Just a little bit of history. And tell you that he was a unionist. And yesterday we spoke about a very prolific unionist, Tom Mboya. And he went to a high school in Mombasa called Buxton High School. Then he worked for the East African Post and Telecommunications as a telegraphist. So remember in those days, if you wanted to send a message, you type in a telegraph, something, something, stop, something, something, stop, then you send the message. So he was a telegraphist, and he did that job in World War II. He worked in Lodwar with the battalion of telegraphists for the British Army. When he came back, he and the people who had gone into Burma, which was in India, to fight in World War II, were not able to get jobs. So he became a unionist, and he formed what was called the Kenya African Transport and Mechanics Union, which later became the Transport and Allied Workers Union. Now there were 2 kinds of freedom fighters or founding fathers. You had the constitutionalists and you had the militants. Now Fred Kubai fell within what we call the militants. He did not have a big problem with violence. He had been in the World War, he had seen violence, and he had no problem with it. And he was also a member of Mau Mau. Now he was a noted member of Mau Mau. And it was this alliance between the struggle and transport can be traced back to him.
That still exists today.
It still exists today. And if you go back to the story that you started with, what began the emergency? The killing of
Senior Chief Waruhio.
It said that there was a taxi driver that was around there. And these taxi drivers were also Mau Mau members. And if you see today, you will see that a lot of gang formations and a lot of people who are alternative to the state, trying to look for a different kind of liberation, if I could call them that today, have this alliance with the transport sector. All the way up to Mungiki, as we know them today.
You know, funny you say that. Chief Waruhio was killed not too far away from here, just next to the Red Hill Village Market intersection. But that's not my point. You spoke about Fred Kubai. Fred Kubai was actually the chief organizing secretary of the Mau Mau. And there's this interview, guys, and you should watch it. Fred Kubai and Bildad Kagia. And they're sat there and they're asked, was Jomo Kenyatta Mau Mau? And they say, no, he wasn't. So how do we know he was not? So he said, there's a function Chief Waruhio and Jomo Kenyatta attended. And in that function, Jomo Kenyatta said that the Mau Mau should go back to its roots. Now, Bildad Kagia and Fred Kubai took that as, go back to your roots and never show your head again. Now, Jomo Kenyatta was summoned by this by the Mau Mau Central Committee, and he was asked, why are you denouncing Mau Mau? And Fred Kubai is asked by this white man, what would you have done to Jomo Kenyatta? And he said, if Jomo said, I'm denouncing Mau Mau for this reason or another, we would have killed him. Okay? But there's something about Bildad Kagia I also want to...
And I wanted to take you there. I think you said that he was, if there was anyone who would fight corruption, knowing how you feel about the Brotherhood of Law, it would be Bildad Kagia. I'm really curious for you to say why.
Absolutely. I'll come to that. Now, Bildad Kagia, born in 1922, as a primary school student, his teacher asks him, what do you want to become in life? And he says, I want to become a warrior. And his teacher retorts and says, it's not time to kill wild animals. It's not time to go and kill wild animals and go hunting. So you cannot be a warrior. He says, no, that's not the reason. The reason I want to be a warrior is because I want to chase the white man back to Great Britain where he came from. Now, Bildad Kagia is elected as a member of parliament in Kandara in 1963. But later in 1966, there was a rebellion. Him and I think Jaramogi Oginga Odinga and Achengo Neko, I think they go and form KPU.
Yes.
Okay? And they were forced out by Kenyatta and Tom Mboya. And the reason they were forced out is because, what's his name? Bildad Kagia was against corruption. Okay? And Jomo Kenyatta goes to Kandara and he campaigns against Bildad Kagia. And he says, the reason you're poor is because you did not take part in the successor class activities. And that was in taking land. And now I sit back and I say, aha, who then is very qualified to fight corruption?
The one who refused to partake in the making of the successor class.
Absolutely.
All right, so now we'll move on to Paul Ngei, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Born 18th October 1923, passed away 15th August, so not so long ago, 2004.
Yes.
He went to Alliance High School, joined the army in the King's African Rifles, and then joined Makerere University to study journalism, which actually really surprises me. But Prof was telling us that he was probably the very first original journalist in Kenya, so we'll give him that one.
But you see, at that point in time, there was a reason why the struggle needed a journalist. How then do you tell the masses?
How do you disseminate the information of the Mau Mau?
And I think he shared that responsibility with Achengo Neko. Because Achengo Neko had a paper that he had founded with Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, and it was called Ramogi, and it used to be in the Luo, but it was preaching their liberation promises and preaching the agenda that they wanted. And when they left Kapenguria, when they were released, Achengo Neko was in cabinet, the first Minister for Information, Broadcasting and Tourism, and he formed the Kenya News Agency, KNA, as we know it today.
So I guess we can say, this function of journalism was very important. We might not see it now, but it served a purpose at that time. So when he's released from detention in 61, 2 years before independence, he then starts to campaign and he becomes a prime minister, a member of parliament. And he was the longest serving member of parliament through 2 presidents, both Jomo Kenyatta and Arap Moi.
And cabinet minister.
Cabinet minister as well. But the thing about Ngei is that he was a very flashy man. Stories are told about how he would go to car dealerships, grab the keys, get in the car and, just leave and say, you owe me this because I gave you independence. So
very entitled.
Very entitled. So by 1990, he has to leave his post as member of parliament because he's declared bankrupt. And so his story ends very tragically. He then gets diabetes. His 2 legs are cut off. But I think quite interesting is that he was in love with Jomo Kenyatta's daughter, Margaret. And he used to write letters to her, intercepting the letters that Jomo was sending to Margaret, intercept them and profess his love for her, which he got into trouble for doing.
He got in trouble. I think Jomo asked him, I can see you want to be my
son-in-law.
The last person we're going to talk about is Achengo Neko. And Achengo Neko, as I already said, was an editor and publisher of Ramogi Weekly and the Luo paper, agitated for freedom, together with his good friend and confidant, Oginga Odinga. He was the one who initiated the meeting between Oginga Odinga and Jomo Kenyatta, because Achengo Neko worked very closely with him. In fact, when they came out from detention, Achengo Neko became the personal secretary to Jomo Kenyatta before he took on his ministerial position. He was also the first one, I think, to fall out with Kenyatta. In 1966, he quit his position because he felt that the government was not espousing the views that they had at independence, that African socialism was in essence capitalism. So he formed a socialist party led by Oginga Odinga called Kenya People's Union, KPU. He was later detained by Kenyatta And released, it was in 1969 and released in 1975 because of riots that happened in Kisumu when Jomo Kenyatta had gone there to open the Nyanza Provincial General Hospital.
It's called Russia.
Yes, it was called Russia because it was said that the money that was used to build it was from Russia, and it was because of the correlation between
absolutely
Oginga Odinga and
the Soviet
Russia.
Union, the Soviets.
He died of a heart attack at the age of 87 in the year 2007 in his Rarieda constituency in Bondo.
One thing, common thread that runs across everybody else other than Jomo Kenyatta, the Kapenguria 6, is they lived and died in squalor.
Yeah.
And that has made me think this. Were they street smart, or could they have, or did their principles override their possible greed?
I have a different question, and I think maybe we'll try and answer it on Friday. Who then was the true founding father? That's my question. Yeah. This is Winning Headlines. We did not have a winning headline, but we had a winning cartoon from Gado of the Standard. Welcome back to the table. This week we've been doing a series on our founding fathers in anticipation for the anniversary of the death of Jomo Kenyatta tomorrow. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And we are on your TV screens. Take a moment to look for us. On your TV screen, search for us. We are available on Pang, Free to Air, Star Times, and Go TV. Have a great day. Please do not revise your history. Read it for yourself and know what happened. See you tomorrow.